Epistemology as the compass of scholarly inquiry and transformative teaching. Epistemology, in its philosophical foundation, concerns itself with the nature and scope of knowledge. It addresses fundamental questions such as, what counts as knowledge? How is knowledge acquired? How do we know that what we know is true? In academic research, epistemology is not a purely theoretical consideration. It is the compass that directs how a researcher approaches the production of knowledge. It governs the relationship between the knower, the researcher, and what is to be known, the subject of study, shaping the strategies and methods through which understanding is sought. Different epistemological positions offer distinct ways of conceptualizing the knowledge-making process. Positivism assumes that knowledge is valid when it is derived from observable, measurable facts, free from researcher bias. A positivist investigating education might ask, what statistical relationship exists between class size and learner academic performance? Interpretivism, by contrast, holds that knowledge emerges from the meanings individuals assign to their experiences, and that understanding these meanings requires engaging with participants' perspectives. An interpretivist might therefore ask, how do teachers in rural schools interpret and adapt to the introduction of digital learning tools? Critical epistemology extends the interpretive stance by interrogating power relations and societal structures that shape both knowledge production and lived experience. A critical researcher could ask, whose voices are privileged or silenced in the formulation of the national curriculum, and how does this affect classroom practice? Constructivism views knowledge as co-created between researcher and participants, shaped by interaction and context, and might lead to questions such as, how do students and lecturers collaboratively construct understandings of academic success in a first-year university course? In doctoral research, epistemology is indispensable for three interconnected reasons. First, it defines the criteria for valid knowledge within the study. A positivist may privilege quantifiable patterns, while an interpretivist values nuanced, subjective accounts. Second, it directly informs methodological choice, determining whether the study employs experimental designs, in-depth interviews, ethnographic observation, critical discourse analysis, or participatory action research. Third, it ensures philosophical alignment with ontology and methodology. If ontology specifies what is real, epistemology specifies how that reality can be known. A mismatch between ontological and epistemological commitments risks undermining the study's coherence and credibility. Epistemology also has profound implications for transformative teaching practice. Teaching is always an epistemological act, as it frames what counts as legitimate knowledge in the classroom, how that knowledge is generated, and whose knowledge is recognized. Traditional models often operate under a positivist or objectivist assumption, privileging established facts over experiential or community-based knowledges. In contrast, transformative teaching practices adopt pluralistic epistemologies that validate diverse ways of knowing, particularly those rooted in local cultures, lived experiences, and marginalized histories. In such classrooms, the educator is not the sole custodian of knowledge, but a facilitator of its co-construction. Learning becomes dialogical, with students actively participating in the making and contestation of knowledge. This epistemic openness aligns closely with Paulo Freire's vision of education as a collaborative, liberatory process, where learners not only acquire content, but also develop the critical capacity to question how knowledge itself is constructed and by whom. When doctoral research and transformative teaching are grounded in a consciously articulated epistemological stance, they move beyond transmitting information toward fostering epistemic agency. This shift not only transforms what learners and researchers know, but also empowers them to question the systems and power relations that shape knowledge. In doing so, epistemology serves as a compass, orienting scholarly inquiry toward both rigor and justice. Happy learning!